Intercultural communication is ubiquitous, yet its cultural roots of misunderstandings are often overlooked, and films like Rush Hour shed light on this. The movie pairs reserved Hong Kong cop Lee with brash American detective Carter. Their comedic clashes reflect real cross-cultural frictions from stereotypes, differing communication styles and views on authority. The review uses Hofstede and Haas theories to analyze their dynamic, showing that conflict arises from rigid responses to differences, not culture itself, and that understanding can grow with teamwork.
Hi, my name is Ryan Song, and I'll be presenting part B, which is the summary of all the stories in Rush Hour, which is the movie that we have chosen for our movie review. So Rush Hour, the first one, is an action comedy that blends crime investigation, cultural conflict, and character-driven humor into one movie. At its core, the film follows two very different police officers from two different backgrounds who are forced to work together to rescue a kidnapped child, gradually forming trust and friendship along the way. So the story begins when Su Yong, the daughter of a Chinese consul, is kidnapped shortly after arriving in Los Angeles. The crime is a direct act of revenge against Consul Han for his role in helping international authorities dismantle a Chinese crime syndicate. Because the case involves diplomatic relations between China and the United States, the stakes are extremely high. Therefore, Inspector Lee from Hong Kong is personally affected due to his ties with the consul's family. So therefore, for Lee, the rescue is not just professional duty for him, but also a personal promise. To avoid international complications, the FBI insists on handling the case alone, so they assign Detective James Carter to partner with Lee, mainly to just distract him. Carter is loud, impulsive, and considered unreliable, while Lee is disciplined, respectful, and focused, which is the opposite of him. Their opposite personalities therefore create immediate tension. So as the investigation continues throughout Los Angeles, the pair follow ransom calls, criminal leads through Chinatown, and the city's underground world. So with Carter's street confidence and Lee's combat skills, they complement each other very perfectly, and these scenes highlight the film's theme of cross-cultural conflict while also showing how cooperation begins to form. Well, the major turning point occurs when the kidnappers are revealed to be connected to the LAPD's captain, Thomas Griffin, a corrupt officer who is secretly working with the crime boss, Jun Tao. So Griffin has been manipulating the investigation for personal gain, exposing deep institutional corruption. A final showdown takes place at the Chinese consulate, where staged ransom exchange. So Lee confronts Griffin on loyalty and personal responsibility, while Carter improvises under pressure to prevent further chaos. Su Yong is the daughter, which is the daughter of the Chinese consul, is successfully rescued, and Jun Tao is killed, and also Captain Griffin is also exposed and killed. So the film concludes on a liner note. Su Yong is reunited with her father, Lee prepares to return home, and Carter shows personal growth. Despite their differences, the two officers form a genuine friendship. While Rush Hour is known for its humor and action, its story also emphasizes trust, empathy, and the power of cooperation across cultural differences.
For our arguments, the first one being about stereotyping, and you can see this very actively throughout the film. Carter assumes that Lee is weak based off like him being quiet, and as a result just assumes that he's incompetent, while Lee sees Carter as more like rude and unprofessional because of how he approaches a lot of situations, especially when he's talking to authoritative figures. So yeah. Secondly, the film also like clearly shows like a difference in communication styles, where Lee's communication style is like indirect and very like high context. Like it comes from a very high context culture, and he uses silence and his like non-verbal cues to actually try to say what he's trying to observe. While for Carter, his communication style comes from like a very low context culture. It's just from America, and everyone like he assumes that everyone knows like how to communicate in the way that he does. But yeah, as a result, they don't understand each other's communication style, and no one wants to make each other leeway. So small interactions turn into more like bigger misunderstandings. Another important point is the attitudes toward authorities and power. You can see that Lee like has a very strong respect for hierarchy and rules, while Carter often challenges authority overall completely, and just ignores protocol just for his own personal preference because he thinks that's better in that situation. Fourthly is ethnocentrism and at an institutional level, where especially in the FBI, like they sideline Lee and treat him as like more of an outsider compared to compared to just like including him into the overall investigation, and they just miss out on like a lot of valuable insight as a result. Lastly is that Rush Hour ends with like a more positive message, which is where Lee and Carter just spend a lot of time together. They spend a lot of time working together, and as a result, they start to adapt a communication style of their own, and Carter becomes more patient and Lee becomes more direct, and as a result, they just have like a very effective style of communication for each other. So yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, I will explain Hall's high context and low context communication theory using the movie Rush Hour as an example. Hall states that high context cultures rely more on shared understanding, silence, and nonverbal cues, while low context cultures depend on clear and direct speech. Meaning in high context communication is often implied. Why low context communication is explicit? In Rush Hour, Inspector Lee shows a high context communication style. He speaks less, observes more, and uses silence to communicate respect and awareness. His quiet behavior does not mean he lacks understanding. Instead, it reflects cultural views such as harmony and self-control. Detective Carter represents a low context style. He speaks loudly, directly, and expects immediate verbal responses. Carter believes that communication should be clear and spoken out loud. Because of this, he often misunderstands Lee's silence. This difference leads to cultural misunderstandings. However, as the movie progresses, both characters begin to adapt. Carter learns to notice Lee's nonverbal cues, and Lee becomes more direct when needed. In conclusion, Hall's theory helps explain why people from different cultures may misinterpret each other. Rush Hour shows that awareness and adaptation are key to effective intercultural communication. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Today I will be presenting my part of our film review on Rush Hour 1998, focusing on the avoiding conflict style and the overall review of the film. Although Rush Hour mainly an action comedy, it clearly shows many intercultural communication issues through the partnership between Inspector Lee and Detective Carter. Lee comes from high context collective culture, while Carter comes from a low context individuality culture. Because of this, they communicate very differently and often misunderstand each other. One important concept in my part is the avoiding conflict style. This is when someone avoids direct confrontation in order to keep harmony, and especially show this style when Carter is rude or annoying him. Instead of argue, Lee stay quiet and continue observing. In many Asian cultures, this is respectful way to handle conflict. However, Carter misinterprets Lee's silence as weakness. which create more misunderstanding. This shows how cultural difference in handling conflict can affect communication. Over time, Lee becomes more willing to speak up when necessary, and Claire learns to respect Lee's calm and carefully style. This shows that intercultural communication improves when people are willing to adapt instead of focusing their own cultural norms. In my review, I believe Rush Hour is a good film from studying intercultural communication because it clearly shows how stereotype, communication style, and cultural values influence interaction. Even though the movie uses exaggeration for humor, it still delivers a meaningful message about learning, respect, and cooperation across culture. Thank you.
In short, Rush Hour is a vivid example of intercultural communication. It correlates in the dynamic between Lee and Carter. Their conflicts stem from cultural misunderstanding and stereotypes, not bad intent. As they team up through challenges, they build trust, adjust communication styles, and learn mutual respect. Proving cross-cultural understanding takes time and effort. Hofstede and Horst theories explain their shift, yet the film highlights real communications, complexity, emotions, and trust matter too. Despite its humor, it underscores that patience and openness are key for cross-cultural connection, make it a valuable study tool.